Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be looking at the iPhone 5S again, except this time it's been about 4 months since I've completely owned this phone as a secondary phone. And just to let you know, if you're new to the channel, that this phone is currently in a giveaway right now until next Friday, which is Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2020. And you still have about a little under a week in order to enter in, so feel free to do so. Link would be down below. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into the review here. Now, for the iPhone 5S, this came out back in 2013, which is nearing 7 years ago this September. And also, this thing was pretty revolutionary at the time that it came out in 2013. This was literally the successor to the iPhone 5. And also was paired up with the iPhone 5C, which was a budget iPhone back then as well. Now for this phone here, it has the A7 processor, which is a 64-bit processor here, and 1 gig of RAM. And for storage, this thing had a 16, 32, and 64 gigabyte model. 64 was fairly new. It was pretty big for the time. But now we have 128, 256, and 512 gigabytes, and soon to be a terabyte of saving on here. Now, just really quick, if you know iPhones, that Find My Friends used to be a type of app that you would be able to use from iOS 8 to 12. It just recently got removed, so any device like from the iPhone 6, the 5S, and before, it would have Find My Friends. As for the camera here, the rear is an 8 megapixel sensor capable of 1080p, and the front camera is a 1.2 megapixel front facing camera capable of 720p, and also FaceTime as well, which was introduced with the iPhone 4S. Now for the overall display of this phone, it is a 4-inch display, which is a half an inch bigger than the last generation iPhone 4s, and it has a 1136 by 600 resolution, which is either 326 pixels per square inch, and it was a Retina display, which is again Apple's way of explaining 720 and 1080p, kind of a mid-ground. Now as for opening apps here, it's pretty fast for it having a gig of RAM, but we are starting to see now that Apple is doing security updates for these older phones, including the iPhone 4 and 4S, which recently got 9.3.6. Well, this one here, along with the iPhone 6, and in the iPads for second, third, or fourth gens, have gotten updates to 12.4.5. Apologies for that sudden pause. I was in the midst of sneezing, so if you hear some stuffiness, I apologize. As for the build for the 5S, this was pretty premium with aluminum and glass all around, and it also had a lightning port, which was introduced with the iPhone 5, a headphone jack, and also the nice buttons, which is the plus and minus on the side here, and you can actually physically see the round buttons, and also the usual mute button. And as for the battery, this is a 1560 megahertz battery, not megahertz, milliamp hour battery. It's pretty decent on average. Now that the fact that this thing is optimized on iOS 12, this thing gets about standby time about 60 hours, or on usual use, you get about a day and a half, depending on the amount of use that you can use. Here, either minimum, moderate, or heavy use. Heavy use, you probably get about maybe a day's worth. I say on average, I charge this phone maybe about once per day, maybe in like the middle of the day, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But other than that, for game-wise here, we're looking at Snake versus Block. And it is a little bit stuttery sometimes, but overall, again, you gotta remember, this thing has 8 gig of RAM, while the phones today have about 4 gigs, so it has a quarter of the RAM. And we're also going to check out Crossy Roads 2, everyone's favorite, and also is now an arcade game in a couple of arcades around the world. But back to the phone here. The phone weighed about almost 4 ounces, and the color-wise, this phone came in space gray, gold, and silver, which are pretty good. And also, to add on, the iPhone 5S was also reintroduced again as the iPhone SE, everyone's favorite phone. Oh my goodness, in 2016, sorry about the mess ups here. Now, this phone other than the iPhone 4, was known to be one of the most iconic iPhone designs ever, except for the iPhone 10 that came out, which brought the OLED display, but that's for another time when I get one of those phones. Now talking about the 5S and continuing on here. As explained before, this phone came with iOS 7 and has been supported, still with security updates, but as for major OS support, it lost that back last year in 2019. So this phone had a whopping 6 years of major software updates. But other than that, this phone came out on basically every single network that you can think of: Sprint, Verizon, Unlocked, really anything, even AT&T, which I don't know who has AT&T. Shout out to the AT&T people, because, man, it's been weird, especially now that Xfinity is now a cable, but now also a phone company type thing as well. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. Now, back when this phone first came out in 2013, this phone was roughly $649 for the 16 gig model, which is pretty crazy now that we have phones that are about over $1,000 in today's flagship world. It sounded weird to say that, but I'm just ranting on at this point. But just to sum up, the iPhone 5S is definitely worth your while now that they're under $50 on anywhere such as eBay, Mercari, Amazon, really anything. But would I suggest this phone today? Definitely, if you're really looking for a cheap phone to get into the Apple ecosystem. The only other one I can really think of right now, obviously the 6S is the latest one that still supports iOS 13. But the iPhone SE as well, if you're looking for a small form factor, is also good. But other than that, this is the end of the video, and if you guys enjoyed, feel free to sub down below. But other than that, we'll catch you all in the next video. See you in TF.